country feeling to this church, an informality, which is very heartwarming. Well, permit me to jog your memories a bit here. First, for those of you who are at least as mature in age as I am. School days, dear old. Sure, and I bet some of you could finish that entire song, I bet. It's from a time long ago and quite far away when we, and probably not us as much as our parents, maybe even our grandparents, went to small community schools, maybe even one-room schoolhouses, when life was simpler and learning boiled down to the 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic. Now, for those of you in the congregation who are a bit younger, see if you can finish this book title from the more recent past. The book was titled, Everything I Need to Know in Life I Learned. Yeah, a more recent reflection on things dealing with education. How to share, how to pick up your things, what to say, when to say it, when not to speak, and on and on and on. Well, whether or not you and I remember the old song from the turn of the century, and I don't mean the last turn of the century, or ever read this book, the lessons they taught no doubt resonate with most of us here. It doesn't take much of a suggestion from someone in my position for us to go back into our childhood memories and quickly conjure up wonderful recollections of some kindly kindergarten teacher who held us on her knee or read to us or helped us button up our raincoats on one of those especially blustery days in the Panhandle. I share those memories too. Having gone to school myself for over 27 years and having worked now in schools in both Pennsylvania and Texas for over 25 years, most of my thoughts contain some recollection of school. In a daydream, or especially for an administrator getting ready for the start of school, sometimes a nightmare just before we open up. The majority of these recollections are quite good. Some of them are a little painful, as we recall, and I imagine you're the same. And others remind me of the lessons that I'm still trying to learn in life. As Christians, you and I have spent a fair amount of our life in school too, whether we know it or not. Most of us have gone to or continue to go to Sunday school and continue to ponder some of life's great mysteries as adults thinking about the faith. And all of us, in the very act of coming to Trinity Church on Sundays, listening to the Scriptures read and hearing the words of preachers, well, that's kind of like school too, isn't it? And that's as it should be in a way. In fact, inasmuch as we are disciples of Jesus Christ, the one who was called rabbi or teacher more than anything else in his life as recorded in the Scriptures, our primary mission here at this church may be teaching and learning. But what is it that we should be studying in this great sanctuary or academy of learning we call Trinity United Methodist Church? Well, the curriculum is certainly quite old, and it is time-tested. And the textbook? Well, it contains incredible moral principles, like the Great Ten Commandments or the Golden Rule. It offers us glimpses of ancient Middle Eastern life and history that open our eyes to the politics, the dreams, the values of people we call our ancestors in the faith, and actually sheds tremendous light on the world we live in right now, Middle Eastern and American. There's a fair amount of human interest in the Bible that invites us to delve into the psychodynamics of marriages, of siblings, parent-child relationships. It's all there. And there are great lessons in spirituality and theology, not so much contained in any essays on those topics, but buried within the life stories of poets and shepherds, prophets, kings, and ordinary men and women from a long, long time ago. For quite some time, I have been fascinated by one aspect of the Bible's curriculum that is easily overlooked. It may be passed over because, well, to put it bluntly, it may not have much appeal at first glance. I was even hesitant to have Dr. Mills put it in the sermon or to have it posted behind my head. I notice as beads of sweat starting to develop on some of you as you look at that title and you say, oh no, why did I come today? But there it appears. Nonetheless, the G word that may have sent shudders down your spine whenever one of your teachers in school said to the class, let's open up our grammar books. We all just delighted at that message. Well, today we're going to study some grammar. Over the years, in my preaching and reflecting on my own faith, observing others in the church and the way we all try to make faith a living part of our lives, I've come to believe that there are certain rules of grammar that we as Christians are being given by God and are asked to know and to follow. So if you can dare to go back to school for a brief moment and recall a bit of your grammar lessons, your grammar training, let me share with you 3 great lessons from the grammar of God. Please note I'm going to present them in kind of order of increasing difficulty, from a beginning lesson to a more sophisticated one to one that's definitely advanced placement. And we'll see how far we can go. The first lesson is from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 6, verse 12. In those days Jesus went out into the hills to a lonely place to pray, and all night he continued in prayer to God. My job at Ascension Academy requires me to write all the time. Like many of you, I am sending email messages and memos and reports and letters on a daily basis. It seems to take up an increasing amount of my time. Routinely, I'm asked to write essays or articles, and I have 2 or 3 books that keep kind of rolling around in the back of my head. So writing is something I live with every day. To be a writer, especially to be one that hopes to be a good writer, one has to be familiar with the use of normal sentence punctuation, particularly when and how to employ a comma, a semicolon, a colon, a dash, and a period. And each designates a stopping of an idea, whether for a short pause, as is the case for the comma, a longer pause for colons, semicolons, and dashes, or for a complete stop, marked by a period or an exclamation point. Of these punctuation marks that I've mentioned, the comma stands out to me as by far the most versatile and the most important one. A comma should force us as readers to come to a pause between 2 related ideas before moving on, providing us with a chance to catch our breath, so to speak, giving us the opportunity to reflect on what has just been said or read and what's about to follow, and asking, how are they connected? Well, my colleagues in the English department will tell me that commas are typically used too much when people write, with run-on sentences just littered with pauses that should be better served by semicolons, or better yet, by periods, and make smaller sentences. But in real life, I've observed just the opposite to be the case. We tend to underuse the comma. Now, I'm not describing how some people that you and I know speak. You know, the kind that just will keep talking to you very rapidly without coming to a pause, never even taking a breath, never giving you any chance to put any kind of word back, and you sit there after a while and you're just exhausted. I'm not talking about that particular habit. What I am describing is our tendency to get so busy in what we're doing day in and day out that we never pause to consider what's really important, to catch our breath, to smell the roses, if you will. The underuse of the comma in our living, the avoidance of a time to rest, to reflect, to rethink, may be one of the great contributors to ill health, both physical and spiritual, in our society. Well, like all great teachers, Jesus modeled how we need to get away once in a while into the hills to some lonely place. It's as if he were instructing us that we need to employ a comma in writing the sentences of our life so that we may recover and savor, rethink, and pray. Perhaps that's what the Sabbath is really all about, or summers in the Panhandle. It's good advice to follow from Jesus, isn't it? Never underuse commas in your life. It's not only for good writers, but for all of us who would script our lives in a way that is spiritually healthy and fulfilling. There you have it. Grammar lesson number 1. Now that wasn't very hard, was it? Well, hold on. Things get a little more rigorous as we go to the next lesson. From Ephesians chapter 2. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing. It is the gift of God, not because of works, lest any man should boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. When you and I speak in English, we communicate our intentions through a variety of moods. Do you remember what they were called in your English classes? When asking a question, we step into the interrogative mood, right? Like that Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? The interrogative mood. When making a declaration of fact, we are in the indicative mood, stating things that are. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And when commanding someone to do something, such as I might do in some churches, but not in this one, and yell from the pulpit, "Wake up out there!" That's in the imperative mood, the command. 2 of these 3 moods typically relate to each other in complementary fashion, such that in everyday life, one always precedes the other. Do your chores, young man, and you'll get your allowance. Hear the 2 moods? Imperative, followed by the indicative. Do your chores, followed by the fact. You'll get an allowance. One depends on the other. Get good grades, and you'll be able to use the car this weekend. And it goes on and on and on. Parents talk like this a lot, don't they? So do teachers. The imperative sets the terms for the indicative. Or in other words, we're commanded to do something, and if we do it, then a reward or a logical consequence will follow as a statement of fact. All of us are accustomed to this way of speaking because it reflects how we normally relate to each other in this world. Commands or instructions are followed by results or consequences. The imperative precedes the indicative. It makes sense at home, at work, well, in just about every place we can imagine. But it isn't God's grammar. Paul sets us straight on this. By grace you have been saved through faith, but this is not your own doing. It is the gift of God, not because of works, lest any man should boast.